I'm just going to share these to my 2 pages here, and then we'll get things going. Oh, mute that. All right. So thank you guys for joining in, and appreciate everyone being here. Those who've called in, and this is broadcast both on YouTube and on the Mike Urgo First Selectman page, as well as the Town of North Stonington's Facebook page. And this is what has become every 2-week drop-in. And I'm very pleased today to be joined by Director of Health of Ledgely Health District, Steve Mansfield, and Mashantucket Pequot Tribal Nation Chairman Rodney Butler, who's also on the Reopen Connecticut committee. And so some good opportunity for questions and answers here. And again, the purpose of these is really just to allow the public to ask questions about the town or health. And really, it's really kind of an open dialogue. So what we've been doing is giving basically a few minute update from each of the guests as well as myself, and then really allowing most of the time for kind of Q&A. So people are able to go ahead and post a question on the Facebook pages, or also if you've called in, you can actually just ask a question live once we're kind of done with our short presentations. And so with that, let's start with Steve, if you want to give us a lay of the land as far as it relates to what types of things are happening in COVID-19 world.
Sure. So we continue to see an increase in cases daily. I think it's important for everyone to understand that although we're months into this pandemic, it's not the time to let our guard down. We fully expect that the cases will continue to increase, and I think the likelihood of that happening is going to only increase with the partial reopening of all of the businesses and so forth in Connecticut. The more people interact with each other, the more likely there is to be an increase. So we're expecting that we will likely see a second push. North Stonington has been, throughout Ledgely Health District, our 10 municipalities, it's been the least impacted. We've had 0 deaths, and I believe up until this morning, we had 11 total cases. So that's great. Social distancing is working, and throughout the district, it's working really well. The majority of our cases in some municipalities are due to long-term care facilities being in those municipalities. So the case burden in the community is actually much less than it would appear when you initially look at those numbers. So we'll continue to do the work we're doing. Our biggest challenge right now is contact tracing. We have 25 individuals, staff, and volunteers who basically chase down the contacts of all of our confirmed cases that we're notified of by local hospitals, providers, and the state health department. So far, we're able to keep up. We've made contact with every one of those people in our jurisdiction, and we're somewhere around 650 confirmed cases so far. And we'll continue to do that. The state of Connecticut Department of Public Health has put together an additional contact tracing program that will not replace ours, but will supplement it if need be. So if the cases continue to increase or we have sporadic outbreaks and clusters, we can rely on the DPH folks to assist us with that contact tracing. As far as reopening Connecticut, what role does Ledgely Health District play? It's kind of interesting. This is obviously a public health emergency, but we don't play a large role in reopening restaurants. It falls under 1913 B42 of the Connecticut Public Health Code and our local food service regulation, which already allows for outdoor dining and outdoor cooking. So if people want to have outdoor dining associated with their establishments, it's perfectly okay with us, and they don't even need to let us know because it's routine. It's something we allow anytime. If people do want to do any type of outdoor cooking, then they do need to contact us. But in any case, there's no permit involved or fee involved in that process. And we have plenty of environmental health professionals that are available to assist, not only with the setup of the outdoor cooking, but also with complying with the governor's mandates, which are pretty dense. There's page after page after page, and we've actually condensed all of that information into a one-page document for the establishments that we regulate, which are food service and cosmetology establishments. So we'll be putting those out on our website and social media platforms tomorrow, so restaurants can see exactly what we will be looking for when we go out into the field. So that's a basic overview. One thing we are waiting on is another governor's executive order, because we're sure that it's going to provide additional information and detail regarding the reopening of businesses, and for us specifically cosmetology, food service, and so forth. So the only other comment I'll make, and I've said this on numerous occasions, the public health community, a local public health community, was disappointed that the governor's office didn't include any representation from local public health. We're the entities that are charged with licensing and inspecting, and we have really solid relationships with all these regulated establishments. So we just didn't have a seat at the table, and we were disappointed in that. And we made that clear that we think there should be representation at the state level when we're talking about reopening, because we're a key partner in that process. So Rodney, very much appreciate your contributions to that group, and I hope it's going well.
Thank you for the update. We'll get some questions going afterwards, but next I'd like to have Rodney certainly give some updates about the reopened CT, but also Foxwoods, obviously our largest neighbor, one of our largest employers around here, and obviously this is hitting very seriously at Foxwoods. So Rodney, thank you very much for taking the time to join us tonight, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Mike, and thank you, Steve, for that update as well. I'll start with Foxwoods because it's right in the backyard. I mean, first and foremost, I'm a proud resident of North Stonington, so it's an honor to be invited tonight, representing our own town. But you think about the last few weeks, and actually a month and a half since Foxwoods is closed. We closed our doors on March 17th, and it's really hard to think about that and think about the time frame, the time that's passed between then and now, and to think that there's still no clarity on when the opening is. Although from the day that we closed, we had been planning on opening. We just didn't know when that would be. And I think when we first closed, everybody was optimistic around the country and saying, well, look, yeah, we'll close for a couple of weeks and we're going to open the doors and be back to normal pretty quickly and full staffed. And then as the weeks started to go by, you realize that this is incredibly serious, and there's a lot of unknowns, and so much so that you really couldn't calculate when you were going to reopen and what it's going to look like. And so we've had a lot of time to think about that in the last 7 or so weeks, and really focusing on a lot of things that Steve had touched on, and what's important, focus on the health factor that are involved here, and making sure that one of the key things that needs to be addressed in any reopening is managing the points of contact. And so for us, we're looking at starting at the gate with temperature checking of all of our employees, patrons that would come on property. If you're over 100.4 degrees, then you get pulled aside and asked. Then there's a second check, and you'll get asked to leave if you're still above that temperature. We're talking about employees, all employees wearing masks, patrons wearing masks, limiting the amount of people that can actually come into the buildings, because that's key. The amount of contact that people are having and the duration of that contact. We already did it. Some of you that may have visited Foxwoods the last few days before we closed, we already started minimizing the gaming spaces. and closing down restaurants, we actually turned off every other slot machine and closed down tables and started spreading out the seats at tables as well. And so a lot of those things are going to be just amped up to another level when we look at opening up. And we've been preparing for that. We've been buying plexiglass dividers for the hotel check-in, for the tellers, for the restaurants, looking at how we're going to space out our restaurants and pulling out chairs and tables, making sure they're spaced as well when we do reopen indoor dining. And it's interesting sitting on, going through our own planning. Foxwoods, which it's in a sense is its own small city, being on the reopening CT team, which is focusing on all these different industries and not necessarily gaming, but all these components of gaming that fall under our roof at Foxwoods. And I will say, Mike, you hit the nail on the head when you talked about the number of employees and economic impact that we're seeing in this region. And many of you may have seen the letter to the governor that the regional delegation had signed off on, and really highlighting that impact. There's just a stunning chart of unemployment across the state that was published, I believe, yesterday or the day before, and it shows you statewide what the unemployment percentage is by town, and there's a big dark mass in southeastern Connecticut, right? Most of the state, there's a couple of pockets here and there, but there's this large mass in southeastern Connecticut. And what it points to is between us and Mohegan and the tens of thousands of jobs that we have, and the impact that has on employment in the region. But what people don't factor in are all of the vendors that we have as well and their employees. And so between both of us, we have over 500 vendors just in New London County, in addition to the 8,000 employees that collectively we have in New London County. And so the ripple effect is huge. And you saw that clearly in that chart. I think that got the governor's attention. Well, certainly the passion of our local legislators, and we always appreciate them. They've been stand up for us, and they understand the region. They understand how important both casinos are to the region, as well as the local municipalities like yourself, Mike, and COG, as well as your support. So we appreciate that. But it's a challenge, right? When you look at sitting on the Reopen CT committee, it's interesting, because we're talking about unemployment in the state, and there's a statistic that's almost 70% of the state is still employed, and I look around at Foxwoods at the empty hallways where I can roll a bowling ball and not hit anybody, even if I tried, and thinking, well, where are they working at? Because we have everybody that's unemployed, and same thing with Mohegan. So it's an interesting perspective sitting on the Reopen CT team, because they're looking at it as a perspective outside of myself. And Dan Miser, who's been an amazing advocate for the Restaurant Association, and Tim Phelan, who's doing the Retail Merchants Association. Like most of the retailers are out of work as well. But between the restaurants and retail and casino hotel, I mean, we're the core of all of the unemployment in the state. And so it's interesting sitting on this committee where there's large manufacturers, there's hospitals, there's scientists, and they don't quite see the true impact. They get it, they understand it. But they don't see it firsthand like we do. And so it's been eye-opening for them as well, explaining what we're going through down here in southeastern Connecticut. So the governor put out the phase 1 plan that reopens on May 20th. It's it's careful, it's calculated, it's being driven by the science and medical professionals. It's interesting. The sub team that I sit on is a business sub team. We don't talk. We get an overview of the science and the medical approach that they're taking, but we don't have any influence on that. So it's good. So we're just focused on how do we safely open these businesses under the guidance that the medical team is putting forward. So it's really interesting data that I've never been exposed to before from that side of it. And I think we're all learning a lot here, but focusing on what's opening, again, it comes down to really two components. One is contact intensity, and the other part is your ability to modify those contact points. And so by way of example, if you're outdoors and you're 6 feet apart, the modification is really simply wearing a mask, right? And avoiding people. But we're inside of a building, again, the Foxwoods example, the point there is just like with indoor restaurants and spacing out. I mean, you're in a building for, extended period of time. There's a lot of points of contact, and there's extended points of contact. And so how do you mitigate that in these plannings for the various industries? And so, first phase, very cautious. There's no date on the second phase, but first phase, you'll see a lot of the outdoor facilities opening up. Mystic Aquarium announced that they're going to be opening up their outdoor exhibits on May 20th, which would be great. The Seaport as well, but you won't be able to go inside the Seaport. You won't be able to go inside of the aquarium. Many of the indoor museums, especially in this region, tourism is a big factor. Those won't be opening, probably not till the second phase. And restaurants as well won't be opening till the second phase indoor. And it's a challenge, as you know, Mike, being, in the town of North Stonington, not a lot of outdoor dining in North Stonington, right? So it's a challenge for these restaurateurs to figure out how they're going to balance that. Do they actually reopen up? Is it worth the risk? The weather risk in May, that they face, and try to bring employees back for that short period of time. And then buying inventory, right? There's a lot of risk there. So I'm not sure that many restaurants will open up in this first phase. And if they do, it'll be incredibly calculated. And then again, the retail component, they're open May 20th, and they get to open at 50% capacity. But you can't try on the merchandise. You can't stay in the stores for long. You can't use the changing rooms. And so it's a new world for all of us. And again, it's just going to be trial and error. Hopefully more trial and less error, I guess I would say, but as we move forward, because there's just a lot of things that we're learning. And Steve, you can speak to that. I mean, I just heard for the first time today that, contact matters, as not only just the distance and 6 feet of social distancing, but it's also matters if you're within 15 minutes of time of the duration of the contact, that matters as well. And so it's really interesting how much we're learning every single day about this. And as more and more air is around us start to open up, well, again, we're going to continue to learn more. So us at Foxwoods, we've talked to the operators out in Asia, right, that have reopened, and what are their best practices, and what are they learning, and what can we learn from that? There's a few casinos across the country that have started to open, and more en masse will open next week. Jurisdictions like Louisiana, Arizona, Southern California, some Oklahoma facilities, they're all opening up next week. And we'll start to learn more about their operations and pick up some of their best practices and make sure we're implementing those here in Connecticut.
Thank you, Rodney. That's a good update, and certainly the challenges that you're dealing with are unprecedented. And I applaud you for getting involved on that committee and trying to be a part of the solution here, because this is not an easy problem to solve here. With that, I'll give a few updates on the town side, and then be able to open it up for some Q&A with anyone who has questions for any of the panel today. I'll just mention, since our last drop-in, a few things. We did in North Stonington, we did have our treasurer, I had mentioned in a couple of updates, but our treasurer moved. So he could no longer serve as treasurer. So we were very lucky that Mustafa Ratib, who has been on the Board of Finance for over 10 years and has served on a couple of other committees in town and other groups in town, was able to step in and will be our treasurer now. So it's nice to have that experience with Mustafa, and he's hit the ground running already. So we're in good hands there, and very happy that he was able to fill that role. We are still in budget times right now. It's been, we've kind of continued. I think the last 2 weeks in March, we took off with everything. We weren't really sure how to where to proceed, but we've continued moving forward, and all of our boards and commissions in town, I'm very proud of the work they're doing. The fact that they're continuing to meet remotely. In fact, tonight, timely, we have planning and zoning and economic development is also meeting tonight to, I think, talk about a lot of these issues as it relates to North Stonington with the reopening and other things like that. And just very proud of the work that they're all doing to try to help our community get through this. We actually had a nice meeting. The Board of Selectmen had met recently, and there was some great updates from both the School Modernization Building Committee and the Emergency Services Operations Committee. Those topics have been of interest to a lot of members of the public as far as updates. Our school is basically just about done. The elementary school is just about done. We were very fortunate to be on the end of COVID-19 when the facilities were going to be completed. And thankfully, it didn't really interrupt the supply chain of materials. Most of our materials were in. which it has on a lot of other projects going on. So I think we're counting ourselves fortunate there. And that committee's done a fantastic job of really building some really state-of-the-art facilities, and can't wait to be able to have an opening so people can see just the beautiful new elementary school that our kids are going to be able to use once we get past this. So, and then the Emergency Service Operations Committee, which that committee's been tasked with kind of looking at emergency services in town to see what best practices there are, what we can do to streamline, improve, make sure that we have adequate coverage. And so they have a very important charge for our community, and they've already hit the ground running as well. They've had, I think, 4 meetings now, and have really put together a task list that is pretty awesome. And if you take a look at their meeting minutes, I think you'll see the hard work they're getting done now. So I want to mention students that need meals. They are providing at the schools breakfast and lunch. So you can actually just visit the school between 11 and 1 at the Old Middle High School on the back side there to pick up lunch and actually breakfast if needed. So that can happen any day, 11 to 1 at the school. I wanted to mention revaluation is happening. This was something we contracted for prior to this whole COVID thing happening, and we were well on our way. So the change with that is that the inspectors for revaluation will not be going in the houses, but they will be doing exterior inspections. They will have their cars marked. We have a whole page on the website dedicated to the revaluation on the assessor's page on the town website, northstoningtonct.gov. So if you're wondering about who the inspectors are or what the marking on the car looks like, we actually even have listed when we anticipate them going to certain roads. So just know that this is authorized, it is necessary. By statute, we have to do this every 10 years, and this is the year we're doing it. So we've done a lot of the work already. It's just a matter of getting out to some of the properties which they're working on right now. I just want to mention the census. That's something that I just keep talking about every time I have the opportunity. It is census year, which maybe is an opportunity because a lot of people are home now. So hopefully they can take the time to just whether go on the computer or fill out what you got in the mail and send it in. North Stonington was at about 69% response rate on our census, which is okay. I know we can do a lot better, and funding for the state really depends on accurate census figures. So I'd ask everybody to go on, and if you haven't already, fill out your census information. It's really important. And I'd like to see North Stonington among the top there and responding, which would be great for us. And I just want to mention the, on the recreation side of things, our recreation committee has continued to meet to try to come up with different ideas for appropriately distanced recreation things. And there are some cool things happening, such as, we've got a virtual art class happening on there. And there's some other things that have been kind of bounced around. So, happy to see that they're still trying to come up with some different ideas. And certainly, we are cautiously optimistic as we do the reopening here. I think Steve's comments are certainly not taken lightly that, we all need to kind of try to get back. Obviously, this is just devastating for businesses right now. But this virus hasn't gone away. It's still there. And so we have to just take care of ourselves, wear the masks, do the right things to protect yourself. And that also protects others because, you might be somebody who is one of those asymptomatic people who just doesn't affect, and then you may come in contact with somebody who could die from this. I mean, so it's very serious. And so I just want to just remind people to just really be cautious, take care of yourselves, your families. And with that, I'd like to unmute both Rodney and Steve. Unmute yourselves and keep yourselves unmuted. And then I'd like to just be able to open it up for any questions or comments from anyone. So if there's anybody on the call who has any comments, you can just simply unmute yourself and you can ask your questions, and we'll try to manage it that way. And I'll also keep an eye on the Facebook and comments as well. So I see our chairman of the Economic Development Commission, Brett Mastriani, has unmuted and appeared. So what questions do you have, Brett?
I have 2 Zoom meetings going on in the house, so I had to like situate myself outside between my son on Boy Scouts and my wife on Board of Ed. So
that's a real background, Brett. I thought it was one of
That
those
is.
fake Zoom. That's incredible.
No.
Looks great.
That is real. Question for you. As Mike mentioned, we have a meeting coming up actually after this at 7, a joint meeting with planning and zoning that we're working on some ideas and options to help businesses as they reopen, especially on the restaurant side of things and outdoor dining where businesses don't have it. Rodney, I want to ask you, do you know of any plans of Lake of Isles, anything going on there with outdoor matches opening up for outdoor seating or anything?
Yeah, I mean, that's the great thing about the lake. It looks like your backyard. It's beautiful and relaxing, right? So
Yep.
we're all envious of you right now, Brett. But the lake, look, we've been operating under the DECD guidelines for golf courses since the actual closure of the state, which is interesting. I mean, anyone who's been out there and is an avid golfer, the way that it works, there's one person per cart. In our case, typically you would walk a golf course would be the regulations, but in Lake of Isles, it's quite lengthy and it's very difficult to walk. But I mean, but it's a seamless transition from you get out of your car and you're literally walking directly to your cart. You're not contacting anyone, any of the employees or anything. We've been doing a lot of food distributions through Lake of Isles. We've done we just did Mother's Day meal that you pick up curbside, and so the entire staff there has been doing an incredible job staying busy and prepping meals, and so they've been looking forward to getting to outdoor dining. We have a very small patio space that exists on the back side of the clubhouse, which, I mean, with full seating, there's probably about 8 tables.
Okay, the meeting is being recorded. We are live streaming.
Excuse me.
So it would narrow that down to 4 tables. We also have the patio on the lake as well, and so if there is demand for it, we'd certainly look to expand upon that. I mean, again, open air, extra spacing, by the water, good breezes. I mean, those are all the characteristics of outdoor dining that in this era of COVID that the committee is looking for. But beyond that, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, one of our bigger parts of our business there at Lake of Isles is actually weddings and banquets. And so it's interesting. A lot of people actually aren't canceling weddings. They're willing to. I mean, you want to get married, right? If you don't want to get married, it's a great time to make up that excuse that, hey, babe, we got to cancel it, right? But they're just postponing, and it's great, and they're really optimistic about proceeding sometime in the fall. Although what's interesting, again, with our outdoor space and this current guidance, you know, I think by phase 2, they'll probably loosen up on some of the outdoor gatherings beyond what they're doing now. And who knows, maybe you can have a wedding in July. We'll see.
Great. Yeah, and if you can have anybody over there that wants to contact either myself or Juliet, we've been working on some town paid for advertising for some of the businesses that are open and restaurants, and we're grouping them together. But as this businesses are opening, it's something that we have in our budget that we're working on to promote. And I know they've been doing a lot of online marketing for their dinners and stuff like that. But if you want, give anyone my contact email through the town or put them in contact with Juliet so we can help out on that front.
Yeah, we'll do, Brett. And I would also point out that I know DECD just launched another sub team just today for small business that focuses on small business. And our regional rep is Tony Sheridan from the Southeastern Connecticut Chamber. And they have chamber reps from all over the state, and they're really going to focus on giving good guidance and information to these small businesses that just don't have the access that folks like Foxwoods have or the aquarium has or what have you, and giving them access to resources, giving them access to where to find the PPEs they need, and so forth. And so go to the DCD website if you're a small business in North Stonington and go check that out as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Rodney. Thanks, Brett. Do we have other questions on the phone? If you do, all you have to do is hit unmute, or if you are calling in, you have to hit *6 to unmute yourself, which you can just do. I'll check the Facebook pages right now. There's a little bit of a delay in the broadcast, so sometimes it takes a second for them to for the request for questions to get publicized on the sites. So if there's anyone on the phone that has any, great time to ask them. Again, I'm joined with, so you've got Steve Mansfield, who's the Director of Health, Ledge-Lite Health District, and Rodney Butler, Chairman, Ashantucket Pequot Tribal Nation and Foxwoods. And I see someone has unfixed their video. Is that Allison? Allison, welcome. And what can we answer for you?
Hey, so I've reached out to Ledge-Lite Health District about specific restrictions for campgrounds that are in North Stonington and Connecticut, and I haven't really gotten too much info. And I was wondering if anybody had any idea of who I could contact. I know Ledge-Lite Health District said to contact the governor directly, but I'm not too sure if the governors can actually take a phone call from somebody like me. So I was wondering if anybody had any advice. I know I got a document from the state of Connecticut saying that pools had to stay closed. Public pools have to remain closed beyond the May 20th date. And I'm just I'm getting a lot of feedback about local beaches for Connecticut, whether they're gonna open. And I just, was looking to get some clarification on some of that stuff.
Yeah. Hey, Allison, if I could, Steve, first of all, big fan of KOA. So appreciate you being right down the street from me. So campgrounds are opening on the May 20th guidelines, and I can get these very specific detailed guidelines straight from the Commissioner of Economic Development, so that you can at least have those. As it relates to campgrounds itself, I mean, as far as your questions about beaches opening up and all that, I don't know that guidance has been put out yet, Steve, and maybe you're familiar with that. But as far as the operating guidelines for campground, I'll send you a document.
That would be fantastic. Thanks. And about all the other stuff, I just wanted to make sure that nobody else had heard anything, because I sure haven't. So I've just been telling people that are calling that are coming for Memorial Day weekend, we'll have 128 campers rolling in on Friday. And I just want to make sure that we're following everything that we're supposed to be doing, but also whatever restrictions, I want to make sure that the guests know prior to them arriving, so they're not surprised. So thanks.
Hi, Allison. Just a couple comments on that. So I'm just curious if Rodney was referring to the same document. I think he's referring to the Department of Public Health did send to all the campgrounds the specifics about what you can do, when you can open, who you can actually let come into your campground. You didn't receive that?
I got a letter from the state of Connecticut from Peggy, but it wasn't very, that was just talking about on May 20th, people that were leasees more than 6 months could come back in, or if they paid Stonington. That's the last letter that I received. Okay, well, I'll double check and I'll just forward you what I have. As far as beaches, pools, the other things, I'll just say we're frustrated, like you're frustrated, in the lack of clear guidance about when things are going to open. We literally receive dozens of phone calls every day from folks like yourself saying, hey, what's happening with this? And we forward those to either the governor's office or DPH, or sometimes both, and ask for clarification. Sometimes their responses are quick and timely if the question is easy. If the question is more complicated, sometimes we don't get a response. So it isn't, you're not the only one who feels kind of left out a bit and I'm not complaining. I just think it's a matter of the fact that the Department of Public Health and all of the other state departments are extremely busy. This is something they've never experienced. This is a once in a lifetime pandemic. We thought H1N1 was difficult to deal with about 10 years ago. So I understand your frustration, and we feel that as well. But feel free to give me a call at the health department, and I'll get you whatever information we have. And I should say, whenever we do get new information, whether it's from DECD, DPH, Department of Environmental Protection, we do post it on our website right away and all our social media platforms. So if it's not there, or you think you may be missing something, just give me a call. Okay, awesome. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Allison, I just want to make sure you have everybody's contact that you need here, and if that's, then do you have contact for these people? So you can, Rodney, it sounded like you maybe have Allison's contact.
I don't think so, but Allison, you can send me an email. It's my full name, Rodney Butler at foxwoods.com. Very easy.
Okay.
And mine's S Mansfield at LLHD.org. So first initial, last name, LLHD.org.
Great. Thank you for those questions, and thank you so much for being here to ask those questions. I know there's a lot of people are having those concerns, and certainly other campgrounds, maybe not in North Stonington, but I know some of our neighbors in Preston are also having some of those conversations as well. So if there's anyone else with other questions, you can certainly start your video if you like, or just unmute yourself. Again, if you're on the phone, just hit *6 to unmute yourself, or just if on the Zoom call, you can just hit the unmute button in the top right corner. I'm going to check on the online to see if any questions have come in. Not seeing any. All right. In lieu of not hearing any more questions, there's not any on the on either page right now, which is fine. Rodney, Steve, is there anything else that you guys wanted to mention as we're on the call, or did you touch on most things that you wanted to?
The only thing I'll mention is please check our website and social media platforms for those guidance documents we'll be putting out tomorrow morning before 10 o'clock. I think they'll be very useful to our regulated establishments. Rather than wading through all of the information, it'll just be a basic checkoff list, and they'll be able to prepare so that when our regulatory inspectors come out to visit their establishments, they'll know exactly what we're looking for. Otherwise, just everybody be vigilant, stay safe. Thank you very much.
Rodney, anything else to add?
Yeah, no, I just reiterate that. I mean, look, we miss everyone. We're looking forward to getting our doors open and open them safely, and working with all the health professionals like Steve and everyone else, and just trying to get as close to back to normal as we can. But just know that's going to take time and a lot of diligence on all of our parts. So looking forward to it, though.
Well, I want to thank both of you guys for taking the time here. I think a lot of good questions were answered, good information was shared. And again, this will be kept on our YouTube page as well as the Facebook pages. So a lot of people will be able to see this and kind of go back to it. So certainly if you're on this call and you want to share it, go ahead. And we'll look forward to doing something similar again in a couple of weeks. And with that, I think we can sign off. So appreciate you guys' time, and everybody have a good night and stay safe.
Thanks for having us, Mike. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.